Good afternoon and welcome back to Back Garden Bushcraft. In this video we are going to have a look at some knife skills, and those knife skills are going to be used to create a tent peg. The first step before we go anywhere with a knife or any other tool is to make sure you have your first aid kit to hand. Whenever you're using tools, you need to make sure that you're properly prepared. No matter how careful you think you're going to be, there's always a risk you're going to cut yourself, so you need to be able to deal with those cuts. So, to start making your tent peg, we need a piece of wood about 20 to 30 centimeters long and our knife. So today I'm going to use a piece of holly, because this just happens to be a handy piece of wood I've got in the back garden, and we're going to create a tent peg. So this is, you can use this wherever you're out and about. If you lose a tent peg, you forget to take them with you, or you just want to suspend a tarp without having to even bother taking tent peg with you. If you know you're going to find pieces of wood, you can make your tent pegs as you go. When we use a knife, we have to be aware of the blood circle around us. So that's an area out to both sides of us and in front, and anywhere where the knife can go. You should have no one within that area when you're trying to work. You also need to be very aware that you do not work with the knife blade in the triangle there. Any cuts there are very dangerous because you have major blood vessels running on the inside of your legs. You cut through those, you're going to bleed a lot. So we need to be very careful where the point of the knife is at all times. So I'm going to safely remove the knife from the sheath. Place the sheath behind me out of the way. And the first step is to put a point on the end of the tent peg. So you're holding the knife securely in your fist grip, hands wrapped round it, thumb round to the other side out of the way. And we're going to use the knife out to the side, and we're going to slice, take the wood down to a point. If any of you find this really difficult, the other option is to use your knee to brace the knife. So you put the back of the blade against your knee, and then you're pulling the wood against it. You need to make sure that your knife is sharp at this time, because the more force you have to apply, the more chance it is to slip and to cut you. So I'm putting a three-sided point on this. And holly is actually quite a hard wood. Your better choice for this would be something like hazel, as it's a softer wood to work with, easier to cut. But once you get going, and you're trying not to take too much off at any time, the knife will gradually peel it away. So there you have a relatively blunt point. It doesn't need to be that sharp, because you're going to be using a stick to drive it, or a mallet to drive it into the ground. The next step will be to put the notch into the other end. The notch is going to be about 25 to 30 centimeters down from the top of the stick. So what I'm going to do now is to use my knife to baton across into the top of this stick. So I'm just going to move around now carefully. So I've got a knife in my hand. Place the knife down on there while I'm getting myself ready. We're going to use the mallet to drive the knife into the stick. So you make sure the stick is on a solid surface. You transfer your knife to your non-dominant hand. I'm right-handed, so it's gone into my left hand. And then we place it 45 degrees onto the piece of wood. Now using the mallet, I'm going to strike firmly onto the back of the blade to cut it into the wood. And then, once I'm happy I cut far enough there, I'm going to turn it to put across into the opposite direction. So now I've cut the cross, put the knife down for a moment, put the mallet safely down, and I'll get back to my comfortable cutting position. So I'm just going to transfer the stick and the knife around, and what we want to do is to use a knife to remove that piece there, and that piece there. So you do this quite carefully, and we're going to use a reinforced grip. So now, because we're trying to remove a small piece of timber very carefully, I'm going to use my thumb to control the knife. I'm just removing very, very small pieces to create the notch. So once you've worked base of the notch down, you then transfer to the side to clear the wood from the side cuts. You do this gently. And also to the other side as well. You may need, while you're cutting this, to go back to your chopping block to clear these pieces. So I'm just going to move again. And what I'm going to do is to place this back down on here, using the knife to make a cut down through to allow me to clear this piece of wood away. So with that done, we just come around now and we're just going to tidy this up a little bit. These pegs are normally only ever used once, so they don't have to be a work of art. So that's the cut made there. And I'm just going to revert back to the chopping block again, just to clear these last couple of pieces. So there we have it. The notch is slightly offset, it doesn't matter. What we can also do is, where we have a vertical piece there, we can very carefully cut that under, which just makes the cord lock in there better. The other thing before we finish this off is that we need to put an edge, take the edge off of the top of the peg, because when you keep striking it with a mallet, if you've got a square edge like that, the edges of it will splinter out. So again, carefully with the knife, and we're going to use our thumb again, making sure we're cutting upwards and away so that the blade can come nowhere near our fingers. We're just going to trim carefully round. And that just helps stop the edge of the peg from splintering out when you hit it, especially if you're going to use this peg 2 or 3 times. So that is a quick tent peg that you can make. Doesn't take you long, especially if you're out in the woods. All you need is a small saw, a sharp knife, and you don't need a mallet. Just a heavy stick will just allow you to create several of these tent pegs in a matter of about 30 minutes or so. So that's tent pegs created for you. And that's going to be the end of this short video, and we'll hopefully be back soon to do some more back garden bushcraft.